baby. That was a whooping. The Vikings take it to the Giants 28-6. All the biggest takeaways coming up on Locked On Vikings.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first post-game listen every week and your first listen every single day. Hello and welcome as well to anybody who is new, who's getting excited about the Vikings again, because that's what they do to you. My name is Luke. You can find this show wherever you find your favorite podcasts, whether it is any podcast listening app like SiriusXM, where if you search out Vikings on that, you can also find Paul Allen live broadcasts of games. If you have SiriusXM, you can also find the show on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Today on the show, 28-6, Vikings win, go to 1-0 with a convincing dismantling of the New York Giants on the road. Giants in their Century Reds, which look good. And I'm not going to hear any guff about it, but nothing else about the Giants looked good all day. That was as dominant a win as we've ever seen in the Kevin O'Connell era by margin of victory. They have never won a game by more than by more than 3 scores before. So that is the first time that has ever happened, and a comfortable 22-point win, which is just so refreshing after being treated to like 4 straight years. The Vikings haven't won a 3-score game since 2019, since that game at StubHub Center in Los Angeles, where the Chargers committed 7 turnovers in a game. You remember that one in 2019 in their color rush uniforms? I was at that game. That's why I remember it. But that was the last time that the Vikings won by more than 3 scores. So this very unfamiliar feeling of like being comfortable in the fourth quarter and being like, all right, well, I guess they'll just kind of like run this one out. But really, the way that we got to here goes down to Sam Darnold. And I think the big moment for me is a 99-yard drive, 99.5, I would say, yard drive. Officially, it ties the longest ever Vikings drive because they don't do half yards. But I went back and looked at the previous one. So the way this goes down, the Vikings force a punt. Beautiful, beautiful punt downing by the Giants. They did this great job getting the ball like down toes an inch from the line, right? And so the Vikings are as backed up as like is legally possible by the rules of the NFL, and then they end up, one yard run, and then another quick pass gets them room, and just I don't know, by law, whenever you're backed up against your own end zone and you get a first down, that has to be a touchdown drive. It's just how it works. So it goes a big 50-yard chunk play to Justin Jefferson, and before you know it, they're in the red zone, they're scoring. And that is part of probably the stat you're going to hear a lot all week, 12 for 12 to start the game. All completions. And it wasn't all easy stuff. Some of it was, a quick screen or whatever, but some of those were pretty high difficulty throws. We really saw that calm, collected Sam Darnold that we were sort of promised all offseason. If you listen to the way that O'Connell talked about him, the way that his teammates talked about him when they were, interviewed in the press scrum after a camp practice, they all said, man, this is a different Sam Darnold. This guy he's a little bit more grown up, and he's really dialed in, and the timing's great, and just you wait, they all said. And a lot of us were skeptical. I was a little skeptical, but after he looked good in the preseason, it was a little easier for me to believe. But I was still like going into this game like, okay, but show me, when it matters. Let's see when it matters. This is all just kind of theory, and it's no longer theory. This really is a different version of Sam Darnold. We'll see if that now continues against a tougher team. But it's really difficult to ask for more than what Sam Darnold did in this game. Everything was, for the most part, accurate, for the most part, safe, and really well executed and on time. You don't need to be the hero. And that's the lesson that Sam Darnold has learned from his Jets time, is that you don't need to play hero ball. You really saw him take that lesson to heart and not try to play hero ball. Throw it away when it's there. A lot of what I'll call quality checkdowns, right? That you just, okay, Clearly nothing was there. I mean, we'll see, right? We'll look at the all 22, and this is the way we always do this. We'll look at the tape, we'll see if anybody we think is open. We'll look at what we think the concept is. We'll try to figure out if that was a check down or if it was overly safe or not. But obviously overly safe is better than overly risky because you don't want to start throwing a bunch of turnovers. The only turnover came from, it was an interception where Darnold's arm was hit, ball flips up into the air, gets taken down by a Giant, with Dexter Lawrence coming in and hitting him. If you are a Giants fan, the one player you feel best about here is Dexter Lawrence. Dominant performance from Dexter Lawrence against Ingram and Bradbury. That looked at the beginning of the game like there was going to be a big problem here, where Dexter Lawrence was blowing up every play. He was killing Ed Ingram. He was killing Garrett Bradbury. He was getting a sack, and he got a TFL, and he got in for everything. And after 2 drives, they figured out how to kind of adjust the protections to stop him from getting one-on-one. I said that was a key to the game when I was talking to Pat Trano with the crossover. Keeping Dexter Lawrence away from the one-on-ones. Like, that's the big O-line protection game. And the Giants came out with a plan to get Dexter Lawrence the one-on-ones because they want those one-on-ones. Seemed like the Giants entered the game with a game plan that worked for that, and that the Vikings whatever the Vikings had prepared kind of lost that battle. And then after 2 drives, they changed to whatever protection they need, so they knew exactly what answer they did once they saw what the Giants were doing fronts-wise, and it pretty much shut it down. Then what it became was, outside of the odd exception, it became doubles on Dexter Lawrence all day, or waiting for him to go out and then going tempo to try to get as many plays in as possible without him. And leaving one-on-ones with Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. And hey, those aren't free either. That's Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, both of whom have had plenty of their own moments. I mean, Brian Burns is a verified superstar. But those two, I thought, acquitted themselves very well in a very tough matchup. And it's a tough matchup the other way. Those are 2 good tackles. That was strength on strength. And the Vikings got the win there. Suddenly, Sam Darnold had a lot of clean pockets. Weirdly, his pressure stats, I think his PFF pressure was 55%, which is ungodly amount of pressure, but it doesn't feel that way because there were a lot of long, really clean pockets where a lot of those things happened. But again, Sam Darnold overcame that pressure in a lot of ways, got out of the pocket, ran when he was supposed to, threw the ball away when he was supposed to, checked down when he was supposed to. So a lot to like from the passing game. Of course, you also had Aaron Jones. He goes off for 94. Apparently, they wanted to get him 100 right at the end of the game. They came up just short because they were kneeling at the end of the game. No reason to risk fumbles or any weird stuff. I'll mention here a bold prediction hit. Week 1, we got one. We didn't get a single one last year. We already got one week 1. Chris said that Aaron Jones would average more yards per rush than Daniel Jones had depth of target, and it wasn't even close. 6.7 yards per carry for Aaron Jones and 4.8 depth of target for Daniel Jones. So that means that I will do a punishment. That will be one of those, if you remember the viral eggs thing that happened as a fantasy punishment last year, I'm going to do that. 34 points scored in this game. I will eat 34 eggs in one waking, or in one 24-hour period is the way I'm going to do this. And that will be live tweeted, so we can all enjoy that. But I thought outside of those few Dexter Lawrence moments, the O-line had a lot to do with this as well, and I thought the run blocking really got a push pretty often against a pretty stout Giants D-line. So I'm pretty happy with the O-line. You have to call it an up and down day. There are definitely these moments that are going to stick in your brain, but because it's it's Dexter Lawrence, he's going to get those. So I don't know if it's fully excuses getting beat by Dexter Lawrence, but it is a caveat that I guess you have to take in mind and balance that out however you will. Justin Jefferson, a quiet 59 yards on the day. He was mobbed. Seemed like he was doubled, tripled all day long. And that's kind of what we knew the Giants would do with Jordan Addison in the game now, though, which the Vikings didn't have Jordan Addison the last 2 times the Giants played. Different DC and everything, too. But you kind of felt like the Giants were going to just say, okay, Jefferson has put up $110 on us the last couple. We can't do this with Jefferson again. We're going to double him. We're going to triple him. We're going to commit to him and leave everybody else one-on-one. So Addison won a few. Naylor won a few. You got a good couple of catches to Josh Oliver. Sam Darnold finding a one-on-one matchup and finding somebody winning it. Just enough people kind of showed up to make that work. And then the other thing is Aaron Jones and the running game working out as well. That was the key. The big key to me was Aaron Jones had to have a good day. You had to punish too high, and they ran into too high a lot of duo runs, which I'll explain in a sec why I think duo is a really good choice for this one, and a lot of those good runs were on duo. But What that meant was the ball spread around a little bit more, and while Jefferson was limited, it gave everybody else enough opportunities where the Vikings could move the ball at will. I should mention, too, Jordan Addison leaves with an ankle injury, importantly, the other ankle. And apparently they avoided major injury there, so we'll see what kind of timeline he is on. I want to talk about the defense. I want to talk about that duo thing, and also kind of what it means moving forward, so that'll all be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by PrizePicks, and oh boy, has PrizePicks been fun for me lately. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Just pick 2 to 6 of your favorite players and more or less on their stat projection, and then you can go. But right now they have a promo that you have to abuse. It is so abusable. They've got a promo all of September. You can have a play that is Caleb Williams more than half of a passing yard. As long as he gets half of a passing yard, you're good. Caleb Williams was dreadful. Still got half of a passing yard. That allows you to simply increase your opportunity through whatever the rest of the squares that you play. And it's been very, very fun to do. So go to the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONNFL. And in addition to all of that, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp, online therapy made easy. Getting into therapy, there are like some walls that you might have up that prevent you from getting into something that might really help you maintain your mental health. And some of that is just scheduling, just saying, I don't really have time for this. I work all day. But that's what BetterHelp is designed for. It's online and suited to be flexible to your schedule. You can do it by video chat or by phone, so you don't need to worry about a commute time. And it can work into whatever your lifestyle is. And the other thing is that sometimes you have a bad experience with a therapist and think that all therapy is like that, but it really isn't. And BetterHelp's whole MO is to hook you up with someone that is right for you. And if you don't like the person they hook you up with, you can change it anytime at no additional cost. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. When you're done here, go check out Locked On NFL. It's new. You can find me on there on Wednesdays, sparring with Tyler in the mornings. They have an AM show with Tyler, the madman Rowland. He does Locked On Titans, and he's completely insane. And if you're looking for a more chill vibe, you can go to the PM show with Tony Wiggins, or both. If you like both, 2 shows a day on Locked On Vikings. You can find me there Wednesday mornings. So let's move on here. Let me talk about this duo thing that I've been sitting in my head. So if you don't know, duo is a run play that is defined by double teams on the inside. So if you've got a problem with a D tackle, you're already kind of thinking, okay, how do I get this guy neutralized? And how about we just call a play that guarantees that there'll be a double team? Unless they line up in more stacked up fronts or odd fronts or stuff that I don't think the Giants actually do a lot of, you can kind of rely on, okay, Bradbury and Ingram 2-on-1 on Dexter Lawrence. They can handle that together. Maybe not alone, but together they can handle that, and you can get a double on him. And the running back's pathing will basically be directly up. And essentially you go to the A gap opposite the Mike linebacker, whoever's declared as the Mike linebacker. You'll see the center pointing at that guy. So you go to the A gap opposite the Mike linebacker, and if that isn't there for whatever reason, you don't get a push. If that gap is filled, if there's a blitz or whatever, you bounce it straight outside. So it's either you go north, south, or east, west. You don't read it like gap by gap like you do with zone. So essentially, think about it. If you got a big problem in the middle, like a Dexter Lawrence, big problem in the middle, you're going to get a double on him. And even if he beats that, the plan B is to run outside and away from him. So it kind of gives you a built-in answer, and I think that was really smart. And duo bouncing outside, first drive that the Vikings, the first drive that didn't end in a CJ Ham fumble, but the first touchdown drive, Aaron Jones runs outside, and it gets called back on a holding penalty that was debatable, but it was duo, and he bounced it outside. Same exact setup. Duo bounced it outside on the goal line for the Aaron Jones touchdown that ended up putting up the Vikings up 7-0, or 7-3, which turned out to be all of that they needed in the game because the defense absolutely dominated. So So the offense, I would say, was like good but inconsistent. Call it like good, not great, right? You had good moments, but yeah, Dexter Lawrence got a couple on you, and you had a Justin Jefferson drop in there, and you maybe could have got more out of the run game if you could have got 100 if you this play worked better, that play worked better, a couple of penalties. I'll get to that too, by the way, like a delay of game problem, some play clock issues. Like there's some things on the offense where you can be happy-ish, but not fully. Defense, oh my God. This was dominant. And no, the Giants are not a good team. Nobody expected them to be a good team. The Giants didn't expect them to be a good team. They are a team, I think, in the kind of throes of a rebuild or about to sink into one. And like everybody knows that. The Vikings were favored on the road. But holy crap. This was dominant. Dominant up front. Harrison Phillips was insane. Jonathan Grenard did great. Andrew Van Ginkel had the game of his life. He had a sack in the first drive. He had this insane pick six where he jumped a screen, and it's not even the first time he's done that. He actually did it to Sam Darnold in camp too. So like he's and there was one in Miami. So Van Ginkel had the game of his life. Probably the player of the game for me is Van Ginkel, and I don't think that I'm on unpopular ground there. But Ivan Pace filled in well. Blake Cashman filled in well. The secondary, Malik Neighbors got a couple of big ones in zone, but whenever they were manned up, the secondary held up against Malik Neighbors and whoever else, Wan'Dale Robinson or whoever else the Giants were kind of throwing out there. It was just like level to level to level. It just worked. And Flores wasn't even that aggressive. He didn't really blitz Daniel Jones all that much that day. There was still a lot of pressure, and Daniel Jones responded really poorly to it, right? He would run the wrong way, or he would flush out of the pocket when he really could have rescued it, or he would try to force a dumb one. 2 interceptions. One was the Van Ginkel one. The other one goes to Harrison Smith in the red zone where they were desperate at that point. Just trying to get any touchdown. I think it was 4th down. Just trying to force one into a window that was too tight. That I'll break that one down. I actually really liked that play. Is just kind of vintage Harrison Smith, vintage like old guy doing it so right that it doesn't matter that he's old. So when you're in red 2, you're in 2 red. There's no reason to cover deep, right? I mean, you want to cover the back of the end zone, but there's no reason to put yourself, like you're not trying to get depth like you would in the middle, right? You kind of want to play aggressive and on the goal line. And the thing that Harrison Smith does that is so cool is that because he can read and react to everything so quickly because of all the experience that he has and because he's always been like this, he can play it super aggressive and say, I know I don't have to put my heels on the back of the end zone in case of like a post or something like that, because I know that if you do it, I'll see it coming fast enough where I can get back there. So I'm going to play on the goal line. And because he played so shallow, and Daniel Jones didn't adjust to the disguise in the coverage, the difference in the coverage that there was supposed to be, but it was a cover 2 look, and technically that you should be like on a random first down at the 50-yard line, you should be able to throw that underneath the high safety. He shouldn't be a part of that. So that route works versus normal 2, but not versus red 2 when that safety is shallower. And Harrison Smith takes advantage of that. The window is way too tight. That it wasn't open. Daniel Jones tries to fit it in. It gets picked off. It didn't get picked off by him. Probably was getting picked off by Josh Metellus, who also I thought had a fantastic game. So just like flowers all around on the defense. Totally dominant performance. And the question that obviously is going to come up is, I'm sure people in the YouTube comments will start to say, yeah, okay, great game, but it was just the Giants. What happens next week against the 49ers? So here's the deal. We got all the time in the world to talk about 49ers when it's later in the week. Crossover with Locked On 49ers. We'll do all our bold predictions, our whole thing. We'll preview that game later. On Locked On Vikings, if you're new here, here's how we do games. Obviously Monday we're doing a game recap. We got Twitter Tuesday, so get your questions in, and then Wednesday is like a more in-depth film breakdown. Kind of like, so the way Ross does Locked On Saints, Ross Jackson, I did Locked On NFL with him for years now. And he does midweek fundamentals at Locked On Saints. And it's kind of the same vibe. Midweek, everything's a little bit slower. We're far away from the last game, far away from the next game. And we get to just kind of like talk about what I saw on the tape and go a little more in depth. Thursday is crossover Thursday, and then Friday is all about predictions. So that's going to be the thing. But that means that basically today and Wednesday are like full-on Giants game. We're not going to talk about the 49ers. So we table it. We got time. The question is, how indicative can it be when you kick the crap out of a bad team? And the answer always has to be like, look, what is your expectation for what, like, let's say that God came down from the heavens and told you, no, the Vikings are a good defense and this is an unalienable truth. Let's say you just knew that. And you say, okay, they're going to play the Giants. What would you expect to happen? Would you expect them to hold the Giants out of the end zone all day and have them wondering whether they should start Drew Lock? Because that's what happened. That's the conversation that Giants fans are having right now. It's like, are we sure this guy should be starting after, 2 years after they paid this guy? That's dominant. That's what you would expect a good defense to do. So that, like, the answer to that question is to take it out of context and say, what expectation would I have if I knew this defense was good? And then ask, did we live up to it? And the answer is absolutely yes. You cannot ask for more from the defense than what they did against the Giants. Can they keep it up against the 49ers? Probably not. The 49ers are better. They're going to get their looks on you. Like, those are a lot of good players. But it should give you a little bit of confidence. Like, the expectation against the 49ers will also be different. So can they live up to those expectations? That's the questions we'll get to later on in the week. But for now, there are a couple of concerns that I have with the Vikings that I want to address, and a couple other like themes of the game. And we'll see, we'll play a little bit of like, is this concern real or not? That'll be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Gametime, which is the best place to find, forget last minute tickets. It is the best place to find last minute tickets, but it's the best place to find tickets. The deals on Gametime are unmatched. I've been trying to find better deals and I've been trying to like book some stuff. Gametime is insane. Not only can you buy stuff last minute, getting up to 60% off just because the ticket market goes so wonky as you like near the beginning of an event, but you can also get tickets ahead of time, like to the San Francisco game or the London game or the Thursday night game in Los Angeles. That's the one I'm trying to get to right now. You can find fantastic deals. You can also get all-in pricing. You toggle on that feature and it shows the total up front, including fees, taxes, everything. And so no hidden fees, no nefarious nonsense. If you want that honesty, Gametime is happy to give it to you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Moving on here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. So, overall themes of the game. And I guess the question of okay, was a game like this sustainable, right? Was this just a fluke? Did they just beat a good team and they're about to go lose 4 in a row and we're going to be 1-4 going, why did we overreact to that Giants game? Or was this a signal that the Vikings are maybe better than anybody ever thought they were and Vegas was wrong and I was wrong for doubting them and all that stuff? So my deal has always been, I talked about this before the game as well. My deal has always been, talk to me week 2 and I'll see if I believe the hype, right? If they play really well, they go beat the 49ers at home when they're not supposed to, then I'm going to go, okay, yeah, I was pretty wrong about this team. But the doubts are still going to be fair because you've got to sustain it, right? Good game, inarguably good game, as good of a game as you could ever ask for, but one game can only go so far. I think that's perfectly fair. There are some concerns that have nothing to do with the strength of opponent or whatever. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum here. Go have fun. Celebrate a win. Enjoy it. I'm sure everybody wants to. And there are a few things that could be concerns, but maybe shouldn't be concerns. So I've got 3 things that are maybe going to be the biggest like negative talking points. And let's actually try to figure out if they are real negatives or if they're just stuff that doubters are going to bring up because they don't want to admit they were wrong. So you're probably going to see a lot about pressure numbers all week, coming from Dexter Lawrence and how Sam Darnold was just under pressure a lot. And I don't share that concern. Maybe a little. Dexter Lawrence had a good game on you. Like, that's never good. But I don't see a concern that, like, I'm going to bring into future weeks with the O-line. I think they did a great job in the run game. I think getting 94 for Aaron Jones and a bunch for Ty Chandler as well. Like, when the Vikings ran the ball, it worked really well. And Duo, in particular, is a very line up and hit you in the mouth run. Like, it's a very simple run. There's not a lot of super fancy schmancy stuff going on. It is double teams on the big guys and push you forward. And it worked. Sometimes he even broke those through to the second level. Like, that's clean and pure as football gets. That is football as God intended. Is Duo where the running back gets into the second level. So it's a tough D-line. Like, I think the Giants, for as many problems that they have everywhere, one of the tougher D-lines in the league. Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. They've got good rotational guys. Like, they're deep. Like, that's a good D-line. And so to hold your own against it, and, hey, they got their moments, but we mostly, managed to move the ball. I think that I take more positives than negatives from that. Here's a real concern that I have, the play clock. So this is the thing that was bugging me the whole game. If you may have noticed that the Vikings were up against the play clock like all the time. And they even had a sequence in the third quarter where they had one series that they took 2 different timeouts on just because the play clock was winding down and they were going to get a delay of game. And they almost didn't get one of those timeouts off on a 3rd and 4 and and it was going to get backed up to a 3rd and 9. They take the timeout. They don't get the 3rd and 4 anyways. And that's frustrating. And you could see the visible frustration on O'Connell's face and on Sam Darnold's face. So here's what I think is happening there. Kevin O'Connell's playbook has a lot of words in it. That's just the format of the thing. It's got a lot of words in it, which allows you a lot of customization. There's a lot of reason to have a lot of words in it. Also, the more words you have, most of those words are instructions for specific people. So you don't need 11 guys to know all 15 words in the play call. Pretty much only the quarterback needs to know that. But for the O-line, they're listening to the protection and they're listening to the formation. Okay. Like they're listening to the receivers are listening to whatever their route is or whatever the route concept is and the formation. And, they're only listening to like maybe a third of what the play call is. And it allows you to give very specific and customizable instructions, which allows you to really vary up your play calling, to mess with formations, to do really creative things, and still have it be communicable. And, the illusion of complexity, right? You can keep it simple for everybody on your side to understand, but really complex for their side to understand. That's the whole point of it. The problem is it's a lot of words to say and you only have 40 seconds. So if you're going to go into the huddle, like the process has to be, 40-second play clock starts. Play call is getting in as fast as it can. Darnold has to huddle up, relay that play call. You have to get to the line. If there are motions and shifts, you need time to do that. You need time for, if he's going to can the play, you need time for that can. If there's a motion in the canned play, then you have to do that, although that's not very typical for this exact reason. So you need Darnold to have time to survey, make a decision, have a motion, maybe can the play, whatever. What you're going to hear a lot if this continues to happen is Darnold, you'll hear the snap count will be, he won't do the white 80 set hut. Usually it's white 80 set hut. You'll hear none of that. They'll just go turbo set hut. Turbo, that's the word. Turbo set hut. So if you hear turbo, the line just has to snap it. That means we're up against it and I don't have time to do all this snap count crap. Turbo set hut. And that is also a way to cancel motion if he has to, but then that starts ruining the play because you're running out of time. So you need a really tight operation to do all that stuff. You need to get the play call in. You need to give Sam Darnold time. If you can get to the line and actually be in his ear with more than 25 seconds left, you can actually talk to him a little bit. So there's another advantage there. But even without that, you need time for the motion. You need time for the audibles at the line. You need time for all this stuff. It's not tight enough right now, very clearly. And the Vikings are struggling, so they need to make a decision. They either need to focus time, valuable practice time, valuable meeting time, on tightening up that operation, or they need to decide maybe we can't do as many motions and stuff, which would also come at a cost. They need to figure something out there. That is a genuine concern to me, and it's something that I don't think you solve overnight. So you're gonna hear a lot more turbo snap counts, and that's just gonna suck because you can't hard count. You can't do any weird stuff with them. The other concern is Jordan Addison's ankle. Is it hurt again? So I thought it was the same ankle when I saw the replay. I thought that was the same ankle that he had hurt. I thought it was his right ankle, but I got mixed up. So I said some of that stuff on Twitter, but I was wrong. No, it's the other ankle. And according to Ian Rappaport, they avoided major injury. So they're going to bring him back to Minnesota. They're going to do more tests. They're going to conclude. They're going to see what the timeline is. And Kevin O'Connell is pretty communicative about these things, although he has a history of underplaying them. So keep that in mind. But it doesn't sound like it's a major concern. And there's two things that kind of calm me down here. One is the actual nature of the injury doesn't seem to be all that bad. I mean, if he misses a couple weeks, it's just a couple. It's not 6, 7, 8. But the other thing is that because the running game went well with Aaron Jones, and Jones himself had a lot to do with that, that, okay, if they're going to go too high, double Jefferson, mob him all day long, we at least have one counterpunch that's working. Because last year, if you lost Jordan Addison, it's like, well, the Madison run game is not doing this. The Ty Chandler run game is not doing this. And Ty Chandler, maybe he's taken a step forward too. I would love for that to sustain. But if, last year's run game couldn't carry you if they were doubling Jefferson, and sometimes the offense would just shut down on that. Or with Jefferson out, obviously, that's a different thing. But if you can use the run game as a punish there, they just can't put the safeties high anymore. If you're just running through them all day long with too high, eventually they have to. They have to put another guy in the box and try to stop you. If you can force that move, Jefferson can pop off. So don't be worried about this 59-yard performance by Jefferson at all. There's a lot more I would love to talk about, but that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Vikings. Get your Twitter Tuesday questions in. Show notes, there's a Google form you can fill out there. You can just send an email to lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. And as always, Skol.